Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you 10 items that are nice to have around the shop when you're doing paint and body work. All right, so all of these items that I'm going to show you are available online at Amazon.com, and I'm going to put a link down in the bottom description there for every single one of them. So I'll start with I'll just pick one at random here. These are aluminum sanding blocks from Motor Guard. I think they're called run blockers. They're great. You use them with wet sandpaper to denib, get the trash out of the paint, sand down or run. They work really well. They have different contours on the bottom depending on what panel shape you have there. These are pretty inexpensive. It says they're from Manteca, California, which is actually not very far from where I grew up. That's a great little tool to have. Once you're done painting, at the end of the job, get your finish cleaned up. Speaking of wet sandpaper, number 2 here, I like the 3M wet or dry rubber squeegee. Anyway, it's just pretty straightforward. It's just a rubber squeegee. It's great for when you're squeegeeing the water off your panel after you're wet sanding. Just check your work. Pretty simple thing, but it fits in your pocket. And just kind of nice to have with your wet sanding stuff. So when you're sanding, if you're doing, not wet sanding of course, but this is the dry guide coat. I mentioned this in a previous video. I love using the dry guide coat on my body filler, your mud work. This is great for checking your progress on that. If I'm doing a large area of primer or a lot of weird contours like underneath a hood or your door jambs and stuff, I like the rattle can guide coat. Don't use regular spray paint, spray can paint like this stuff right here. Don't use that for guide coat. I mean, you can in a pinch, but it'll clog up your paper faster. And then as well as if there's any left over, you never know if it's going to react with your paint. So speaking of paint, simple little tool, just a little paint can opener. It's got the leverage you need, to open your can, so you don't have to use a screwdriver. And then it's got the other end in case you need to open up a cold snack when you're done with your job. Hammer, pretty straightforward, basic, but get a cheap, clean hammer for your paint room or your paint bench when you're doing your paint stuff. Because if you have an old hammer like this one that's covered in grease and dirt, maybe you were out at the junkyard, knocking out greasy old ball joints, or something, you don't want this contaminating your work, your job. So get a dedicated hammer if you can, or at least clean the one you have that you're going to use. Something else I like to have, lots of razor blades. Use them for all sorts of stuff, from cutting out runs to cutting your masking paper, cutting your plastic when you're bagging the car, all sorts of things, when you're filling in pinholes in your filler, using your glazing putty or something. You just take a razor blade and just, a little bit on there. You don't need a big old spreader. So all sorts of uses for these things, cutting gaskets when you're doing your engine, or who knows, whatever else you use razor blades for. I get a pack of 100. It's way cheaper that way than buying them 5 at a time at the blister packs, from the auto parts store. So that's a tip there. Blowguns. So a lot of guys use just a regular blowgun like this, or a variation of it with a rubber tip. Now these are great for doing carburetors when you're blowing out the orifices in the carburetor, but they're really bad for safety if you happen to trigger it when your thumb's over, or your skin's up against that or something. It's not exactly OSHA compliant. Most guys don't care about that per se, but something to think about. I'm using these right here. These are the Typhoons. I just bought this one because I've had this one for a long time. We use these in the shop all the time. These work great. This one's got a long extension on it. I got tired of taking the extension off every time, so I just went and bought a new one off of Amazon. They're available on the tool trucks, as well as a lot of high-end jobbers or high-end tool stores or jobbers. Your paint stores will have these. I think it moves a lot more volume of air. It's got a bunch of holes around the outside of this cone here, and the cone keeps you from, hurting yourself with it. So as far as airflow goes, I highly recommend going with the high flow fittings. Again, your auto body supply, local auto body shop will have, supply store will have these. I use the Prevost ones. This is a 10-pack I got off of Amazon. And these actually already have pre-coated with thread sealant, so it's super easy to just switch over all your tools. Just buy a couple of these packs and just switch them all over. The other end of them I use is the Prevost one. This one's been around a little bit. It's been kicked around a few times. But the thing nice about these is they just snap together and then just pop apart. Super easy. There's a little button. So can't recommend these highly enough. These are from Prevost. I think it's a German company. I don't know. But I'll show you a close-up picture here, but you can see the size difference between these two. I mean, it's a huge difference in the amount of air volume that you get through these fittings here. And these are really necessary when you're using on your paint guns. All my paint equipment has these fittings on there because you need that volume of air. You heard of HVLP paint guns. HV is high volume, so you need to move. You need to be able to move the air through your tool. So that's why you have these high flow fittings. And I put these on every one of my tools. Even my DAs use them. So, all right, and last but not least is the Hostar, whatever, Easy Edger. This is a great little tool. I never had one up until yesterday. Just came in the mail. Ordered it off of Amazon. Your paint supply paint jobbers, paint supply stores will have these as well most of the time. When I was working in the shops, we always had a couple of these kicking around on our paper trays, paper dispensers. This is more than just a regular tape dispenser. You can use it just to dispense tape, but what it actually does is it folds it over so you have a soft edge when you're doing your jams. Now you can do that manually if you want to. This just makes it a lot faster, easier, and more consistent. I mean, like I said, it's easy enough just to fold it yourself, no big deal. But I like the convenience of it. The only problem is this sucker's kind of expensive. It was almost 120 bucks for this stupid thing. But if you're using a lot of the foam tape, that adds up really quick. And this is a good substitute for that or replacement for it. And it works really well. And so I can't recommend it highly enough. So basically you just pull it out, tear it off, and you can see where it's got folded over on the edge. That way you don't get a hard paint line or hard paint, you don't get paint buildup on the edge of the tape because it allows it to move a little bit. So you get a little dusting underneath it and you don't get that hard paint edge buildup on the edge of the tape. So great little tools. All this stuff is not really required. It's just kind of nice to have. Oh, I forgot about this little guy. In case you have one of those hoods or trunk lids or something with the struts, the lift struts that are worn out. This basically just simply hooks onto the rod, tighten it down, and holds your hood open. So it's a great little tool in lieu of using a vice grip. So, all right, I think that's about everything. The only thing I would really say is necessary is your guide coat and your high flow fittings on your paint equipment, on your paint guns. So, and everything that feeds your paint guns. So you put this on your gun, and then you put a small one on the other end of your hose. Well, there's your restriction. So if you go high flow fittings, make sure it's high flow all the way back to the compressor itself. All right, folks, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something from that video. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. Again, there's links to all this junk down in the description below. You can find them on Amazon. And be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.